"We can't help you move," my parents said. The same day, I read a text, "Moving your brother into his new apartment." So excited. And I decided to test them. "Hey, Elise, we're just so slammed this weekend. Your dad has a project, and I've got church stuff," my mom said over the phone. "Got it. No worries. I'll figure it out," I replied. An hour later, I saw a text from my cousin, helping Russell move into his new apartment today. He's finally getting settled. So proud of him. That's when I realized I wasn't a priority. Not even close. I didn't go nuclear. I didn't call them out right away. I let it simmer, partly because I didn't want to seem petty, and partly because deep down, I already knew. I knew I had always been the second thought, the back burner kid, the one they assumed would be fine. I'm 34. Recently divorced. I had packed up my entire life from Detroit, 8 years of marriage, gone in a judge's signature and a few boxes. My ex, Brian, got the dog and the good furniture. I got a used SUV with a busted AC and a few cracked picture frames. Coming home to Traverse City wasn't some triumphant return. It felt more like limping back into a version of myself I'd tried hard to leave behind. I rented a small duplex not far from where I went to high school. The upstairs smelled like old paperbacks and mildew, and the walls had that vaguely yellowed look that made me think no one had painted since the 90s. But it was mine. And I needed help moving in. I had everything arranged. Picked up the key, got the boxes, mapped out the day. I just needed muscle for a few hours. My parents, Frank and Monique, are both retired. Healthy. Fully capable. They'd helped Russell move 4 times in the last 5 years. I figured they'd spare me an afternoon. "We're just really tied up," my mom said. "It's just a bad weekend." I accepted it. Or at least I thought I did, until that damn text popped up from Riley, my cousin, practically singing with joy about moving Russell into his new place. I sat in the parking lot of my new place, stunned. Then angry. Then numb. I didn't reply to Riley. I didn't even mention it to my parents. I just loaded boxes. I scratched my arm trying to wedge a futon through a doorway, bruised my hip on the U-Haul door, and accidentally shattered a lamp. I got help from 2 neighborhood teens I found through a local Facebook group. Paid them in Little Caesars and $20 each. The first week in the duplex was quiet. I had no couch, so I ate dinner on the floor. The silence was loud. No one called. Not to ask if I was settled, not to see if I needed help. And I didn't reach out either. But the resentment grew. Slow. Cold. Familiar. Because this wasn't new. This has always been the pattern. When I got into the University of Michigan on a full scholarship, my mom said, "That's great. We're still figuring out how to cover Russell's community college fees." When I got married, they gave us a card and a check. When Russell moved in with his college girlfriend, they bought him a sofa, a fridge, and 6 months' rent. When I miscarried at 6 months, my first and only pregnancy, they said, "Maybe it's a blessing in disguise." You weren't ready. Russell got a DUI the same month. They paid for a lawyer and sent him to a restorative retreat. It's hard to be the reliable one in a family that praises the broken bird. I tried to forget about it, bury myself in work. I got a contract position doing remote admin work for a small consulting firm. I'd wake up, log in, answer emails, eat microwave mac and cheese, and pretend this life I'd fallen into wasn't heavy. Then, one night, I cracked. I wrote a Facebook post. Nothing dramatic. Just enough. Unpacked and settled. Moved it all in myself since my parents were too busy that weekend. Funny coincidence, they moved my brother that same day. Faced with tears of joy thanks to the 2 local kids who helped with the couch. I thought maybe 1 or 2 people would see it. Maybe a cousin would message me with something terrible. But within hours, the post had blown up among families. One aunt commented, "Wait, they told me they were out of town?" Another messaged me privately, "I'm sorry. That was cruel of them. You didn't deserve that. My parents saw it the next morning. The first message came from my mom. Elise. That post was unnecessary and hurtful. I left it to read. Then, the phone rang. I didn't answer. Then came the voicemail. Elise, honey. Please call me. We didn't mean to hurt you. We just thought Russell needed more support. We figured you were strong enough to handle it. That line. We figured you were strong enough to handle it. I've heard it in so many versions over the years. When I stood up for myself in middle school, you're strong. He's just going through a lot. When I put myself through college working 2 jobs, we didn't worry. We knew you'd be fine. When my marriage started unraveling, you've always been so independent. We knew you'd get through it. I wanted to scream. But instead, I said nothing. And still, they didn't come by. They didn't offer to stop over. They just waited. Like my silence would fold in on itself and smooth over the cracks. But this time? It didn't. And I wasn't going to let it. I started avoiding family stuff. Ignored the group text when they planned a brunch for my uncle's birthday. Skipped Sunday dinner. I could see the confusion bubbling up in the group chat, Nora asking, Elise, you coming? And my mom replies things like she must be really busy lately. But no one said what they really meant. I was tired of pretending. A couple weeks later, I ran into Aunt Valerie at the Meijer on US 31. We were both in the produce section, fumbling with the green beans. She didn't play it cool. Elise, what's going on with you and your parents? She asked gently, after a long pause. I told her the truth. Quietly. Not to make a scene. Just the truth. She frowned. They said they thought you didn't need help. That you always handle things. Funny, I said, how that never means they actually ask if I do. She sighed. You know how they are with Russell. Always worried he'll fall apart again. Then let him, I replied. She didn't have an answer to that. Just placed her beans in her bag, gave me a sad half-smile, and said, I'm glad you told me. A few nights later, I got a text from my dad. Simple. Just, can I stop by this week? I didn't reply right away. I waited a couple hours. Then wrote, sure. Thursday. After 6. I half expected him not to show. But he did. Right at 6:05 p.m., I heard the knock. He stood on my porch in his winter jacket, holding a bag of groceries. I bought chili fixins, he said, like we were just catching up. I didn't say anything. Just opened the door and let him in. We made the chili mostly in silence. He chopped onions. I stirred the beef. The smell filled the kitchen, and for a second, it felt like things were normal, like we were back in my childhood kitchen, arguing about how spicy it should be. When we finally sat down, he looked tired. Not old, exactly. Just weathered. I want to say something, he started. We messed up. Not just with the move. With a lot of things. I didn't interrupt. I let him go on. You've always done everything right. Always. We leaned on that. Took it for granted. We thought helping Russell was urgent because he was falling apart. But we didn't think about what it means to let someone like you carry everything without support. That's the problem, I said. You never think you have to. He looked down at his bowl. I don't expect it to be fixed, I added. But I need you to know I'm done being the one who just gets over it. He nodded. Slowly. Said nothing. But his eyes were wet, and my chest ached from everything I wasn't saying aloud. Later that night, after he left, my mom called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. I heard your dad came by. I want to come too. I know we've made mistakes. I hope we can talk. But I didn't call back. Not yet. I needed time. Space. I'd spent years being the one who extended the olive branch. This time, I needed them to sit in discomfort. They'd spent a lifetime choosing Russell's chaos over my stability. The least they could do was sit still and feel what it's like to be shut out. The days rolled on, quietly. The tension didn't leave, it just settled into a low hum beneath the surface of everything. I kept working. Logging in, logging out, going for long walks around Boardman Lake when the walls of the duplex felt too small. The snow had started to fall in slow, early drifts, flakes clinging to tree branches and frosting the sidewalks like powdered sugar. I didn't call my mom. But I also didn't block her. She sent little things. A forwarded recipe. A picture of my niece holding a pumpkin. A meme about overcooked turkeys. Not "I'm sorry," not "let's talk," just safe, distant signals. Like tossing breadcrumbs to see if the bird would come back. And part of me almost did. But another part, the exhausted, neglected part, wasn't ready to forgive her again. I had dinner with Nora one Friday night, at a little pub downtown called Sledders, the kind of place with moose heads on the walls and fried pickles so good they made you believe in God. She listened, like she always did. She'd grown up with a different set of parents, my aunt and uncle who babied no one, who gave equal slices of pie and equal lectures on hard work. But she got it. She'd seen the favoritism in my family for years. "You're allowed to be mad," she said, sipping her cider. "And you're allowed to stay mad. But don't let it turn into poison. Not for them, for you." I nodded. I wasn't ready to let go yet. But I also didn't want to carry the weight forever. Then came Thanksgiving. I'd already decided I wasn't going. Aunt Valerie texted me the details at 2 p.m, "Bring something if you want." I left her to read. But 2 days before, she messaged again. "Your mom asked if you were coming. She said she wants to talk. No pressure. Just letting you know." I stared at that message for a long time. My knee-jerk reaction was to roll my eyes, shut my phone off, and heat up a frozen lasagna. But something tugged at me. Maybe it was the quiet of my little duplex, or the ache of too many holidays spent pretending I was fine. So I went. I brought nothing. Not to be rude, I just didn't want to perform. I showed up at 2:07 in a dark green sweater and jeans, the same coat I wore in high school. My mom saw me before I even got to the door. Her eyes widened, and her hand reached up like she was checking her hair, suddenly self-conscious. "Elise," she said, soft and surprised. "You came." I did. She stepped back to let me in, and the warmth of the house hit me. Roasted turkey, buttered rolls, the hum of a football game in the other room. The familiar scent of a family that had always functioned better in appearance than in truth. No one rushed to hug me. No one cried. That was never how we were. But they noticed me. That was new. I didn't stay in the kitchen. I found Nora, sat near her, and only said hello when someone spoke directly to me. I was polite. Quiet. But my presence said everything. At dinner, the tension grew louder. I could feel it in my mom's shifting posture, in my dad's way of watching me without meeting my eyes. When the food was cleared and everyone was scattered between dessert and couch naps, she found me on the back porch, where I'd gone to breathe in the freezing air. She didn't bring a coat. Just stood in the open doorway. "I don't know how to say I'm sorry in a way that feels like enough," she said, her voice cracking a little. I didn't respond. "I thought I was being practical," she continued. "Russell has always needed more. That's not an excuse, it's just how I thought of it. You were capable. Always so capable. And I guess I used that as permission to show up less." Still, I said nothing. Not out of cruelty. Just because I'd waited my whole life to hear something like this, and I needed to let it soak in. She shifted, rubbing her arms. "We should have been there for you. With the move. With the divorce. With the baby." Her voice broke completely on that last word. I finally turned toward her. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not just from age, but from humility. I needed you, I said. Just that. She nodded. I know. The silence hung between us like steam in the winter air. Not bitter. Just heavy. I'd like to try, she added. To be better. I'd like you to, I said. We didn't hug. But we stood together for a long while, our breath curling in the air, two women caught in the gravity of a moment that neither of us could undo but both of us could start rebuilding from. The weeks after Thanksgiving moved quietly, like snow settling over a street long after the plows have gone through. There wasn't an explosion. No dramatic family reckoning. Just silence with a new shape. Like walking into a room and finding the furniture rearranged. My mom didn't push. She started sending small things. Not the usual fluffy texts or forwarded videos, these were different. A recipe she remembered I used to like. A photo of me and my brother from a long-forgotten camping trip. One morning, I found a bag hanging on my front door, fresh bread from Gallagher's and a note in her handwriting that just said, "I thought you might need a warm breakfast." I didn't reply to most of it, but I didn't ignore her either. I let the gestures happen. Let them accumulate. I needed her to prove she could show up when nothing was demanded of her. Russell, on the other hand, stayed silent. I didn't expect anything from him, really. He wasn't wired for accountability. He'd always floated through life with the safety net of our parents' constant apologies on his behalf. But one Friday afternoon, I was walking out of Horizon Books downtown when I saw him across the street standing in line at Brew, waiting for coffee. I almost turned the other way. But he spotted me. "Elise." He called, waving like we were still 12 and sharing bike helmets. I didn't wave back, but I didn't run either. I stood there as he jogged across the crosswalk, too eager, too unaware. "Hey. Haven't seen you since. Wow, Thanksgiving, I guess?" He rubbed the back of his neck. I wanted to say hi then, but, you looked kinda intense. I blinked. I was fine. He laughed nervously. Well, you weren't exactly in a hug-it-out mood. There it was. The Russell deflection. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just a casual swerve around discomfort. "I know about the move," he said suddenly. "Mom and Dad told me. Said you were mad they helped me." Mad. That word again. It made me feel like a petulant teenager, not a woman who'd carried the weight of being overlooked for decades. "I wasn't mad they helped you," I said. "I was mad they didn't help me." He looked confused, like I'd spoken a foreign language. "I didn't ask them to lie," he said. "That's not the point." He shuffled awkwardly. "I mean, it's not like you couldn't handle it. You've always been, you know, the strong one." I stepped back, like his words had physically moved me. "That's not a compliment," I said. "It's just an excuse people use to neglect the ones who seem fine." He blinked. "You didn't think to reach out? To ask if I needed anything? Because you assumed I was okay. And that's the difference between us, Russell. You assume other people will clean up your mess. I assume no one will show up unless I do it all myself." He looked like he wanted to argue. But then something flickered behind his eyes, maybe shame, maybe just the beginning of it. "I didn't mean to make things worse." "Maybe not," I said. "But you didn't try to make them better either." We stood in silence for a beat, the wind picking up, rustling the flags along Front Street. He glanced down at his shoes. "All right," he said finally. "I'll see you around." And he turned, walking back toward Brew, hands in his jacket pockets. I watched him go. He didn't look back. A few days later, my dad invited me over for dinner. Just the three of us. That hadn't happened since before my marriage fell apart. I went. Not because I was ready to forget, but because I wanted to see who they were now, outside of the stories I'd been writing in my head for years. The table was set. My mom had made roast chicken and mashed potatoes. The good plates were out, but nothing too formal. It felt like they were trying, not performing. We ate mostly in silence, but it wasn't heavy. Just cautious. Midway through the meal, my dad looked up. "You're still writing, right?" I paused. "Here and there. You were always good with words. Should have been a novelist." That startled me. He hadn't complimented me like that in years. Maybe ever. My mom nodded. "I told Nora I always thought you'd publish a book someday." The words didn't fix anything. But they landed softer than they would have months ago. After dinner, my mom brought out a pineapple, my favorite, and as she cut it, she said, "I've been thinking a lot about how we talk about strength in this family." I looked up. "We thought we were praising you," she continued. "But we weren't. We were letting you do everything alone." There it was. Clear. Without spin. I let her finish. Let it sit. "I'm sorry," she added. "I can't go back and fix every time we didn't show up. But I want to do better now." I didn't say much. Just nodded. Took a bite of pie. We didn't hug goodbye. But my dad gave me a long look at the door. The kind you hold when you mean something but don't know how to say it. Back home, I sat on my couch, lights off, the pie container still warm in the bag beside me. I didn't feel closure. Not yet. But I felt seen. Maybe for the first time in a long time. The peace held, but it wasn't exactly comfortable. My mom started calling every couple of weeks, short, deliberate conversations, clearly trying to keep her foot in the door. My dad would sometimes send articles he thought I'd like, or comment on a photo I'd post from a trail walk or a trip to the farmer's market. They were trying. But they were still learning what it meant to earn back something they'd always assumed would be there. Russell stayed distant. He wasn't angry, he just wasn't invested. Which, honestly, was fine with me. I didn't need an apology anymore. I just needed space. And in that space, I started to reclaim myself. I began freelancing more seriously. I took on editing work. I joined a local writers group. I dusted off old stories I had stashed away in a Google Drive folder and started rewriting them, not for anyone else this time, just for me. The process felt like picking up broken glass with bare hands at first, but I kept going. Slowly, I stitched something new together. Then something happened. Something small that turned into something big. A woman in the writers group, Margot, told me about a residency program for 3 months of funded time to write in a cabin near Sleeping Bear Dunes. Food stipend. Travel covered. She encouraged me to apply. So I did, thinking nothing would come of it. 2 months later, I got the email, I was accepted. I stared at the screen for almost 10 minutes, rereading the words, waiting for the universe to correct the mistake. But it was real. I was leaving in June. I didn't tell anyone at first. Not because I was hiding it, but because I wanted to sit in joy, alone, for once. My joy. My news. My win. Then, in April, my mom called. "Elise, I know it's short notice, but we're throwing a housewarming party for Russell. He's moving into a new place. This one's really nice. A little loft near the lake." I paused, silent. "I know things are still tender," she added quickly, "but we'd love it if you came. Just a small gathering." That's when the idea came to me. "Sure," I said, almost too calmly. "I'll come. Actually, I'd like to give a little speech at the party. You know, as his sister." "Oh, honey, that's wow. That would be wonderful." I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. "Perfect." The party was predictable: mild wine, cheese platters, warm hugs from cousins who barely knew anything about me. Russell was glowing, as usual, all smiles and banter, introducing people to his space like he'd paid for it with his own blood and sweat. He hadn't. Our parents were covering most of the rent. Right after the cake came out, my mom clinked a glass and beamed. Elise wants to say a few words. A few heads turned, a couple people clapped. I stood. Smiled. Deep breath. I just wanted to say how happy I am for Russell, I began. He's had a long road, and it's great to see him finally land somewhere nice. I know this place means a lot to him. And I'm truly proud. Polite nods. Russell gave a mock salute. But I also want to share something personal. Something I've kept quiet about until now. My mom's smile froze, almost imperceptibly. In June, I'll be leaving for a 3-month writing residency near Sleeping Bear Dunes. Fully funded. I was selected out of hundreds of applicants. Murmurs. Someone said, "Wow. I'll be living in a cabin, working on a novel." It's something I've been dreaming of for years. And I did it all on my own. No help. No shortcuts. I let the pause sit, heavy. I moved here alone. I built a new life from scratch. I learned how to do everything by myself, because I had to. And while that's been isolating at times, it's also been empowering. Because now, everything I've earned? It's mine. Not handed to me. Not bought by anyone else's generosity. A longer pause. And I want to thank Russell, I added, turning to him. Because watching someone be handed everything without having to ask, it lit a fire in me I didn't know I had. His expression wavered, caught between confusion and realization. I used to think being the strong one meant staying quiet and pushing through. But I've learned that real strength is naming what hurt you and still moving forward, with or without applause. That was it. I smiled. So, cheers to fresh starts. For all of us. Polite applause followed. My mom clapped slowly, her mouth a tight line. My dad looked away. And Russell? He didn't say a word. He didn't even thank me. But it didn't matter. Because I hadn't said it to him. I'd said it for every version of myself that had stood alone with a moving box, waiting for someone to show up and finally realizing that the only person who ever would, was me. 3 weeks later, I packed up my things and drove north toward the dunes. I didn't leave a key. I didn't leave a note. I just left. And it felt incredible.